We are going to focus now on what could come next and cross to Zizette Darkazally. She's an associate fellow at the Chatham House in London. Zizette, thank you so much for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, Israel has said that it plans to block the return of those displaced Palestinians to their homes in Gaza until a civilian female hostage is released. So in your view, who is not holding up their end of the deal, and what does this mean looking forward to the next week?
Thank you for your question. Look, so far the ceasefire seems to be holding at large. However, as your report has mentioned, the fragility of the ceasefire remains of concern. And there are many, and the concerns are enforced by many reasons. Mainly, the deal has left many important elements that haven't been resolved, including logistical operational elements for the ceasefire, for this phase of the ceasefire to go ahead. Also, major elements as well, such as the governing of Gaza, which will affect the entire ceasefire operation. Other elements are statements by the government of Israel, by Israeli officials, saying that they're not confident that the ceasefire would hold, that they might go back to resume the war after the phase one is over and 33 Israeli hostages are released. So these are actual statements by Israeli officials. These are not hiccups or obstacles in the implementation. You also have statements by President Trump saying that he's not confident that the ceasefire would hold. And mind you, the US is one of the guarantors to the ceasefire. So what it says and where it stands is crucial for the viability of it. You also have other discouraging elements of what's happening in the West Bank. The escalation of the Israeli military operation in the West Bank does not send positive, encouraging signs that the ceasefire is going to hold or that Israel is interested in the ceasefire to hold. There's also the escalation, the whole statements of the annexation of the West Bank. So just to be clear, I mean, these obstacles that are taking place now, of course, are worrying indications that the ceasefire might not hold, but they don't come in a vacuum. They are part of the statements, the atmosphere, the context, the non-conducive environment that is currently taking place in the West Bank and Gaza for the ceasefire.
Zizette, before we get back to the bigger picture, because I do want to hop off of some of the stuff that you just said there, because we are seeing live pictures right now of Palestinian prisoners who were released arriving in Palestinian territory. Can you tell us what more we know about some of these Palestinians that had been detained and the conditions that they've been detained in?
Well, there have been reports based on testimonies and based on reports by Israeli NGOs, reports by international NGOs as well about the horrible conditions these detainees and prisoners have been held in Israeli jails. There have been reports about torture, inhumane treatment as well, deprivation of sleep, of hunger, of food, of water. So these things are well documented, and anyone can find them if they would like to read more about them. So look, there's no doubt that there is a sense of relief for prisoners reuniting with their loved ones, just like there's a sense of relief for hostages reuniting with their loved ones. But the whole anxiety and fear remains because these celebratory scenes that we're seeing might not last. They can be vetoed by Israel at any minute, at any moment. You have Palestinians who are in phase one supposedly allowed, displaced Palestinians, to go back to their homes or to what left of their homes, to their neighborhoods, and under the threat of any break of the ceasefire any minute. I mean, but they don't know what's going to happen. So these celebratory scenes that we're seeing are are of course a relief to the families, a relief to the Palestinians who've been also under bombardment for 15, 16 months. But the fact that they might not continue, that they are also at risk of ending, is also worrying and keeping the Palestinian society under lots of anxiety.
Speaking of that anxiety that so many on both sides are feeling, Zizette, even if this ceasefire does hold, it does feel like there's been a lot of loss of life, the near total destruction of Gaza, all to kind of start back at square one in the sense that there is still no political solution or any hint of it, as you kind of suggested there. So looking towards the medium to long term, what do you think is required that's been missing up until now in order to have the chance at sustainable peace?
Absolutely. Thank you for this question. To just pick up on what you said, I mean, the horror of the scale of what the war has inflicted on Gaza in terms of destruction and fatalities is unprecedented to a great extent and will take decades to address. And these things are being now revealed and discovered as people start going back to their neighborhoods. Look, I would have loved to see that this ceasefire is part of a much bigger, comprehensive deal. Because as long as the root of the problem, the root of the conflict is not addressed, then what happened, unfortunately, is going to be only one episode of the violent episodes in this conflict. This ceasefire does not solve the occupation of the Palestinian territory. It does not fulfill the self-determination of the Palestinians. It will not guarantee security neither to Israelis nor to Palestinians. So as long as the root of the problem is not addressed, there's not going to be sustainable peace. I mean, the conflict did not start on 7 October 2023. The conflict did not start when Hamas was established at the end of the 80s. The conflict has been going on for so long because there is one very clear issue. It is the military occupation of the Palestinian territory. This needs to be addressed, and this cannot be addressed by just releasing hostages and releasing prisoners.
I want to also piggyback off of what you said there. I would imagine that some would respond to that, that yes, the occupation is an issue, but they would also maybe say that there's the issue of this idea that Israel is under threat by multiple neighbors, by neighbors that don't recognize its right to exist. What do you respond to that response to this question of the occupation being at the root of what we're seeing today?
Let's break down Israel's neighbors. Israel has peace with Jordan, peace accord with Jordan. Israel has peace treaty with Egypt. There are the Abrahamic Accords that also there are peace between Israel and other Arab countries. There are talks about normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. There has been more than one declaration by the Arab countries about peace with Israel. The Arab Peace Initiative that was launched in 2002 makes it very clear of how this peace can happen. The Arab countries, are not denying the existence of Israel. I mean, that's I think a long overdue, an argument that just passes curse. To be honest, it's no longer valid because you've got the Palestinian. The PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, that's the sole representative of the Palestinians on permanent status issues, has recognized Israel, has accepted the two-state solution. It is, for now, Israel there's no political will on Israel's side to embrace and to accept what the Arab countries and the Palestinians have offered it.
As a final question for you, is that I know we just have a few minutes left together. The world has been covering this ceasefire and hostage prisoner exchange deal nonstop since it was reached last week, including here on France 24, of course. Is there anything that you think is missing from the conversation about this deal, about the wider conflict that is important to emphasize here and now?
I would like to emphasize the urgency of reconstructing, of rehabilitating Gaza and the lives of the Palestinians. While the ceasefire is happening, is taking place, while the war also was taking place, there have been unilateral facts on the ground that have been made by Israel, like the expansion of settlements, the detention of even more prisoners, house demolitions. There are banning UNRWA from operating in East Jerusalem, and all of these unilateral acts by the Israeli government will have major influence on any agreement or on the timing of any agreement that might happen between Israel. That would lead to have the potential to lead to sustainable peace. So the urgency of to look at also what is happening on the ground while we are zooming in on the ceasefire and while we are zooming in on separate events, there are no conducive environment for moving forward with peace talks. The facts on the ground, the lateral actions do matter and they need to be stopped.
Zizette Darkazally, thank you so very much for your time, for coming on the show today.